Thank you, Mr. President. It is right that we retain the focus on Palestine, and the significance of this discussion is evident from the high-level participation that we see in the chamber, from His Excellency the Foreign Minister of Bahrain, who was presiding over this session, to many other distinguished ministers who are here, and including the distinguished Foreign Minister of Palestine, whom we welcome. We thank ASG Khalid Kyari, Foreign Minister Espen Barth Eide, and Mr. Tony Blair for their briefings. President, the serious situation in the Middle East remains extremely volatile, with multiple and interconnected crises. In this environment, strict adherence to international law, the UN Charter, relevant UN Security Council resolutions, the principles of restraint, responsible conduct, and diplomacy are indispensable to prevent further escalation and to promote durable peace. And this was so eloquently put across by my neighbor, the Ambassador of Liberia, in his statement just now. But we see that in Gaza, the ceasefire provided relief, but remains fragile, with violations ongoing. More than 800 Palestinians have been killed by Israeli strikes since the announcement of the ceasefire, underscoring both the scale of the crisis and the sensitivity of the situation. Humanitarian aid has resumed, but faced with impediments and thus falling significantly short of the requirements on ground. It is essential to fully respect and consolidate the ceasefire and ensure sustained, unhindered, and scaled-up humanitarian assistance. We hope that Phase 2 of the Gaza peace plan will be completed at the earliest. Any delay risks eroding the hard-won momentum and deepening human suffering. The Gaza peace plan, as endorsed in Security Council Resolution 2803, must be implemented fully in letter and spirit. President, the rapidly deteriorating situation in the West Bank is also alarming. Escalating settler violence, continued expansion of illegal settlements, and illegal legislative measures aimed at land confiscation are grave violations of international law that seek to alter the demographic and legal character of the occupied Palestinian territory. In a joint statement on 2nd April, the foreign ministers of the group of 8 Arab and Islamic countries strongly condemned Israeli legislation and warned against the increasingly discriminatory, escalating Israeli practices that entrench a system of apartheid and a rejectionist discourse that denies the inalienable rights and the very existence of the Palestinian people in the occupied Palestinian territory. In a separate joint statement on 23rd April, the ministers also condemned the repeated violations of historical and legal status quo of the Islamic and Christian holy sites in Jerusalem by the Israeli occupation authorities, particularly the ongoing incursion into Al-Aqsa Mosque. Such actions must cease immediately. President, the high-level conference in July, together with the General Assembly's endorsement of the New York Declaration last year, has established a credible multilateral pathway towards the realization of a Palestinian state. And efforts led by the US President, Mr. Donald Trump, supported by the Arab and OIC countries, have advanced the comprehensive peace plan. We hope that all these efforts, including the Board of Peace under the framework of Resolution 2803, will lead to concrete steps towards the implementation of a permanent ceasefire, further scaling up of humanitarian aid, reconstruction of Gaza, and realization of the right to self-determination of the people of Palestine through a credible, time-bound political process, resulting in an independent, sovereign, and contiguous state of Palestine based on pre-1967 borders with Al-Quds, Al-Sharif as its capital. President, in Lebanon, the Israeli military actions, particularly in the south, have resulted in more than 2,000 civilian casualties. The extension of the ceasefire for 3 weeks, brokered by the US, is a welcome development. But violations continue. As we saw over the weekend, there must be complete cessation of hostilities. Full implementation of Resolution 1701 also remains essential for stability. And in Syria, Pakistan supports a comprehensive approach based on full respect for its sovereignty, unity, and territorial integrity, and supported by inclusive political progress and sustained humanitarian and economic support. In Yemen, a Yemeni-led and Yemeni-owned political settlement supported by consistent international engagement remains the only viable path to lasting peace. President, broader regional tensions continue to pose serious risks to international peace and security, as well as to global economic stability. The situation in the Strait of Hormuz is adversely impacting countries around the world, including Pakistan. Pakistan reaffirms its full support for the sovereignty, territorial integrity, and political independence of all brotherly states in the region. We stand for universal respect for international law and pacific settlement of disputes. At this critical juncture, restraint, dialogue, and diplomacy must prevail. Pakistan remains actively engaged in advancing such diplomatic pathways and advocating for a peaceful resolution of this crisis. The recent talks hosted in Islamabad between the US and Iran stand as a testament to this commitment. Pakistan will continue to support and facilitate efforts aimed at fostering dialogue and stability across the region. President, the root cause of instability in the Middle East remains the unresolved question of Palestine and the continued Israeli occupation of the Arab lands. Not the expansionist ambitions, not the suppression of rights, not the use of force. It is the vocation of occupation, the realization of a Palestinian state, the two-state solution. That is the only viable pathway to a just, lasting, and comprehensive peace for all in the region. Pakistan will continue to support that objective while reaffirming its unwavering solidarity with the Palestinian people and their just cause. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Pakistan for